Okay, hear me out here. What if I were to tell you that it's possible to like bad games? Now let that sink in.
Bitch, what?
As a kid, whenever you get a new game, you just mindlessly get through it by thinking about the story, how well the controls work, or what your thoughts on the gameplay are. And you end up really liking that game. It isn't until you're older that you start noticing plot holes, design flaws, or just straight up bad level design. But it begs the question, are these flaws really that bad that it affects your experience in the game? I'll be going over games that I really like, but other people seem to hate. Well, just to be clear here, the games I'm covering aren't really bad games, they're more so seen as disappointments to the general public. Just like Maryland. Also, I'll try my best not to be biased towards these games. So with that being said, let's take a look at our first game with... Hey, whoa, don't click off the video yet. Don't click off the video yet! Genshin Impact is a free open-world action RPG where you can explore magical worlds with a variety of different characters and a whole lot of weapons. You can also fly, climb, swim, and fight enemies to upgrade and level up whoever you're playing. This video isn't sponsored, I swear. This is also the game that I'm currently playing at the time of writing and recording this, meaning I haven't really gotten that far into it. But from what I've seen so far, I'm digging it.
Wait, but Genshin isn't a bad game, so why would you even include it in this video?
Ah yes, well you see, people bash on this game for two reasons. The first one would be the amount of shit you have to pay for to get a certain character or item. Despite Genshin being free to play, the game has a random RNG thing where there is a very rare chance for you to get a random character. What's that? You want a particular waifu, character who's completely overpowered and can easily carry you throughout the whole story of the game? Pfft, no, fuck you, here's a random character no one's even heard of. Nerd. You see, in order to get what you want, you, yes, you, have to pay for the whole gacha system. Please, let me get paid out! So the game is free to play, but you'd have to sell a kidney to have the full experience. Another thing people don't like about this game is the fan base. Holy shit, what am I looking at here? You thought Pokemon fans didn't like their games? Genshin players make them look like they're in preschool compared to how they are. There are layers to this shit. We got the Twitch streamers, the YouTubers, the shippers, the artists. And none of them even like each other. The amount of arguments and harassments they throw at one another is completely ridiculous. You're practically not even allowed to have an opinion unless you wanted a beatdown from the internet. Well, at least I'm just playing for the story. Assuming that's one of the safe sides. But yeah, overall I'm really liking what Genshin has shown me so far. The worlds are huge and expansive, it has a lot of playable characters, and it has a lot of waifus. I like waifus. It's like Zelda Breath of the Wild with an anime art style. And if you're a fan of Breath of the Wild and anime, then I think it's safe to say that you'll get a good enjoyment out of this game. But just be cautious of the things surrounding it. And if Paimon doesn't shut the fuck up, I swear to God, I will pull an Ozzy Osbourne and bite her fucking head off. Honestly, I was very surprised when I realized people didn't like Brawl when it released. I thought it was pretty weird, like, what was there not to love about this game? It had more characters, a stage builder, allowed you to save replays, final smashes, introduced third-party characters to the roster, access to Wi-Fi, and included an Avengers-style story mode that will never happen again in the new Smash games that follow. It was quite literally the biggest Smash game at the time. Why would anyone have a problem with it? Yeah, by the time Brawl came out, there would be a 7-year gap in between the last Smash game with the new one, making expectations for Brawl understandably through the roof. Also during this time, the Melee community was thriving in its competitive scene, having so many tournaments taking place such as EVO. But when a new fighting game comes out for its franchise, it's out with the old and in with the new. And for a while, Brawl did have a strong competitive scene lasting 6 years, but it did have problems that would divide the community. The first problem being, Brawl wasn't supposed to be a competitive game. At this point, it's not rocket science to realize that every Smash Bros. Title was made to be a party game. It wasn't meant to be taken seriously like King of Fighters or Street Fighter. Its goal was to bring people together who were never really into fighting games and give them a chance to have fun without completely knowing the ropes behind them. That was the vision Masahiro Sakurai had for its first release back in 1999 on the Nintendo 64. But when Melee released in 2001 for the GameCube, it completely accidentally changed the sole purpose for Smash as a franchise. Not only was it meant to be a party game, but due to Melee's rush development time, there were many mechanics that were exploited which made the game faster and more entertaining to watch. This started an underground competitive scene in the early to mid 2000s in what would eventually become one of the most famous esports in competitive gaming.
Wait, but what does this have anything to do with Brawl?
Well, you see, here's the thing. Brawl was Nintendo's response to the competitive nature of Melee, which leads into the game's second problem, changing the mechanics. Nintendo's goal for Brawl was to not make it so competitive and skill-based. This meant 90% of the things that were in Melee were completely thrown out the window. You couldn't wave dash, L-cancel, multi-shine with Fox and Falco, shield drop, etc. Instead, Brawl made everything more slower and floatier, making camping and defensive gameplay more present. But what's probably the most notorious out of these new mechanics is tripping. Tripping was something every character had in Brawl, no ifs, ands, or buts. It gave them a random chance of them falling flat on their face if dashing too much in the match. The fact that Nintendo would let the game punish you for just running made players of the game find new ways to make the game more enjoyable, which led into Brawl's third problem. The game was completely unbalanced. Meta Knight. Brawl did have the most characters to play at the time, but they all suffered from the game's floaty physics. They also had a lot of bullshit text that would cheese their opponents and would make the game not fun. But by far, the most infamous and broken character of the game was Meta Knight. This character completely dominated both the casual and competitive meta. This was a character that you could just randomly pick up, go to a tournament, spam everything, and just win. All of his specials are also recovery moves, making it extremely easy for him to get back on stage. Oh yeah, he can also fly. Obviously, Smash had flying characters before. We have Pit and Kirby as examples. But Meta Knight didn't just have one move that can make him fly. He had two. He can easily go through the air while holding the jump button, and then again while using shuttle loop that leads into a glide. Because of this character's existence, the community almost banned his ass from competitive play. He even has his own fucking tier on the tier list.
You know, Greg, after hearing all this, I can see why the Smash community would rather play Melee than Brawl.
Yes, true. But I honestly like this game more than Melee. Don't get me wrong, Melee is amazing and is the better game for competitive play. But Brawl just has so much content. And even though Brawl's competitive scene was a bit of a letdown, there were still some hype and memorable moments that came from it. A good example being the grand finals of Apex 2013. In fact, Brawl's competitive scene still kinda somewhat exists thanks to Project M, a fan-made mod that allows Brawl to play like Melee. But don't let Nintendo see it. This game introduced so many ideas of what the perfect Smash game could be. And 10 years later, that would eventually happen. My main takeaway from this is, Brawl has done a lot for the Smash franchise, and it should have more credit than it deserves. Okay, be honest. You completely forgot this series existed, didn't you? Epic Mickey! The only time Disney made Mickey Mouse look cool besides Fantasia. Like, seriously, look at the box art for this game. You have Mickey facing the opposite direction with paint everywhere and he's made of paint and... Wait a minute, the fuck am I talking about? I'm supposed to be talking about the second one. I've never played the first game. Yeah, unfortunately, I've only played the second Epic Mickey game. But there's still a lot of cool things to come from this game. First off is the environment in the game. It just looks so damn cool. I really love the concept of Mickey being in the dark, mysterious, forgotten land and meeting new characters and getting to know Oswald. Damn it, I'm talking about the first one again, aren't I? I guess when you think about it, Epic Mickey 2 is just really more of the first game. Like, I don't really see that as a bad thing though, cause even with its similarities, you can tell which game is which. For instance, in Epic Mickey 2, you have Oswald by your side. Look at this awesome guy. This character has sass, he has attitude, looks like he's got places to be.
Okay, so what does he actually do?
He helps Mickey get to higher places. He's like Tails, but with ears. That's pretty cool. Disney, please bring Oswald back. Another thing I really admire is the cutscenes. Every in-game cutscene is a beautifully 2D hand-drawn cartoon. This was also a thing they did in the first game from what I heard, but the second one just adds so much detail to them that it just brings them to life. Believe it or not, Epic Mickey 2 also inspired a 13-year-old me to make his own characters for a while. Some might have been complete knockoffs, but most of them were original. While this isn't a top favorite game of mine, it's definitely one of the more important games to me. This game made me want to learn more about Disney and what other IPs they completely forgotten. Look, what I'm trying to say here is, Disney, please make an Epic Mickey 3, for the love of God, I beg of you! No, your eyes don't deceive you. No, I'm not crazy. And yes, I'm sober. I like Sonic 06, and it's one of my favorite Sonic games.
See, Josh, this is why your father and I tell you to stay in school.
If you watched my top 10 favorite Sonic games video, which by the way, please don't. And if you did, don't do it again. I mentioned Sonic 06 on my list for being ambitious and fun to mess around in. But the reason why I'm talking about 06 again is because I felt like I never really got in depth on why I really like this game. So let's start on what it was supposed to be. Sonic 06 was meant to celebrate Sonic's 15th anniversary and take him to next-gen hardware, but then there were issues in development. Yuji Naka went to the grocery store to get some milk, Sonic Team split in half to create this abomination, blah blah blah. At this point, anyone who shows even a little interest in video games are aware of how this game turned out, so I'm not gonna go into a deep dive about it.
But the glitches, the dumb story, the abysmal loading times. It's no use. And what is Knuckles doing to that wall?
Oh, you simple-minded, oversensitive, loud man-child who's probably bad at playing video games. Let me explain to you why none of that matters. Yes, obviously the game is unfinished, the plot is hard to keep up, and it has long-ass loading screens. But people don't realize that these problems don't occur that often. Okay, well, you still have to go through the story, the loading screens, and whatever the hell Knuckles is doing to that wall. So that's a negative. But it can be possible to play Sonic 06 as a normal game. I know, right? It was just a crazy theory I had and it worked! When you really think about the gameplay of 06, most of the bugs and glitches happen when you're actively looking for them. If you treat this like any other normal game, it's really functional for the most part. The only issues are the very precise controls and wonky physics. But other than that, Sonic 06 is a pretty tolerable game. And, if you're skilled enough, you can use the glitches and bugs to your advantage and get a record time. This has been proven in speedruns. Sonic 06 is the kind of game you have to learn how to play. It's something you gotta learn how to like. It's a completely enjoyable game where you can just mess around and do whatever you want with it. Also in recent years, people admitted that they actually like 06 for a multitude of reasons. There's even a fan-made remake that fixes all the problems the original one had. So whether it's for the so bad it's good gameplay or your nostalgia for it, I'm sure Sonic 06 has something for everyone to enjoy, despite how the game turned out. Okay, now let's go to the other Sonic game I want to talk about. Wow, I just heard the gasp of the majority of the Sonic community just by the name alone. At the time of writing this script, Sonic Forces is the most recent mainline Sonic game. It's a game with deep playstyles, great presentation, and a solid soundtrack. Well, it's a fucking Sonic game, of course it's gonna have a good soundtrack. But it's also a very conflicting game that has a lot of interesting concepts, but falls short for not taking advantages of those ideas. This is what people consider one of the weaker Sonic games and be a massive disappointment to the fanbase. But ladies and gentlemen, let me explain to you why that's bullshit. Forces is probably one of the most overhated games I've ever seen. So much to the point where it's just starting to get stupid. Like, people are seriously considering taking any other Sonic game that's worse over this game. Just what the fuck is wrong with you people? I can understand 06 a little bit, but Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric? Why would you subject yourself to playing Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric? Look, I get that it's not the best Sonic game out there, but when you start complaining about the littlest things about this game, that's when you're just starting to get fucking obnoxious about it. These problems aren't even that bad. Personally, I find the story to be better than the other Boost games in recent memory. Well, besides Unleashed. It's not peak storytelling, but I respect the game's attempt at it. I also like how the cast are characterized. Well, at least most of them. Sonic still has his cocky but supportive personality. Eggman actually seems incredibly threatening and is serious about his plans. Shadow isn't a brooding asshole, and the Avatar character builds up confidence throughout the game. Oh yeah, the Avatar. Forces was the first Sonic game to have character customization. And Sonic artists from the mid-2000s rejoice. This is one of the few things that was praised from Forces. Making a custom avatar is one of the reasons why I like to come back to this game. What makes it work really well is the unlockables for your character by completing challenges. This encourages replay value to the game. Look at this, I made Falco from Star Fox, hands off his cock. But what I like a lot about Sonic Forces is that I find it a lot like the original Sonic game for the Genesis. What I mean by that is that despite the levels being short, if you're skilled enough you can beat the stages in a record time, just like 06. I've managed to speedrun nearly every stage in the game, which makes it more enjoyable to play for me. Though the only downside of it is that it takes a lot of patience and practice to pull these tricks off, but I believe it's worth it once you get the hang of it. In fact, what I'm gonna say here might be a bit controversial and out of the blue, but I honestly prefer Sonic Forces over something like Sonic Colors. I say this because both games are very similar and have a lot in common when it comes to gameplay and level design, but I believe Forces has more to offer in terms of content, challenges, and its rewards. Also, the levels on 2D sections 85% of the time. Look, say whatever the hell you want about this game, but it deserves credit where credit is due. Besides, half the Sonic YouTube community probably wouldn't even exist if it weren't for this game. Like I said before, the hate for this game is incredibly overblown. I think Forces should be appreciated for its ideas and what you can do with this gameplay. It's great for speedrunning practices and you can definitely have a genuine good time with the game. Too bad I'm in a minority and I have to wait 5 years for Sonic fans to realize how stupid they're acting. And get blasted on Twitter. But classic Sonic still sucks though. We don't talk about him. And yeah, that's the video. Now obviously you don't have to agree with me with what I said in this video. You're always free to spark a conversation in the comments and have a debate. Besides, I'm not forcing you to be right. And with all that said, I really hope this video gave you a different perspective on these games, despite how you generally feel about them. Game development isn't easy, and no company intentionally tries to sell a game that drives their audience away. That's why it's important for the developers to communicate with each other, so they can be able to put in the planning, the testing, the production, and most importantly, the Hi. So, I wanted to get this thing out by September. We're in the middle of October now. So, my fault. I got carried away with college and stuff. A lot of busy things happening in my personal life. So, yeah, that's something that might happen every now and then. But if you had enough patience for the new video, which is this one, ending, then I highly thank you. It really means a lot to me. And, yeah, I still don't know how to end videos, so, stay cool, and try not to die tomorrow. And adios!